All right. Can you see this?
Yes, all good.
Perfect. Yeah, first I have to say, like, because you mentioned before, like a one-man army, that's not exactly true. So I have a graphic designer that's helping me and a friend with a database and stuff, but basically executing, I'm alone. And yeah, so the task is basically to make a cloud application. I mean, basically start an application on the internet, and I'm coming from a like front-end background, and I have done backend development quite some time ago. But for me, it was really the challenge how to launch an application and use all this cloud goodness to launch it in a short amount of time and to be able to actually do it more or less alone. So for me, basically, it was not possible to really dig into Kubernetes and all the details because I'm not really familiar with that. But I was just searching for kind of a good balance between like front-end developer experience and running that in the cloud. And I found some interesting things there. So just to give you a little outlook, I'll just like show you what I'm building. My background a little bit, I already said something. And then the third chapter basically is about the challenges, like how do I launch this thing, essentially. Later, a little bit about what I learned, and then we can just have an easy chat. So what I'm building is called CAN. That's an English term and can be used as a noun, like for one's range of knowledge or understanding, or just like as a synonym for to know, to understand, basically. And the idea is that you have a challenge, like I had a challenge, like how do I launch an application on the cloud? And on CAN, you would be able to find a solution for that. And it would be presented by a person who already had that problem and is running through the story, basically. So other than like how-to guides and things that are all over the place, you're really, as an author, taking the time to basically describe all the backgrounds, like where did you get stuck, what was difficult, how did you solve it in the end, or which things you wouldn't do again. So it's a very kind of personal or subjective angle, not so much like this is the real way, but it just says like, this is what worked for me. And yeah, I'm coming from a scientific publishing background, and I had to feel that kind of in this fact-based world, and like you can basically have books and read up on every topic, but what was really missing somehow is having the opportunity to ask someone who was already there, you know, that had the same problem, solved it, and you can basically have a chat with that person. And that's basically the format of CAN. And the difference to other formats like Stack Overflow and so on, or it's not just like for technical stuff, it's like for everything, is that you also set a price for that. So basically you really take time to make something valuable that is not just like an interesting read, but really it goes a bit into like let's say training direction, or like e-learning, basically. So yeah, on the platform, basically you have the articles as you saw here, and you have a profile page. So each author is basically can present themselves a little bit. And the idea is really exchanging knowledge. So either you are just reading up on something and buying some of these articles, or you have a field of expertise and you're going to show that and helping others to be faster with what you were trying to do. So I'm actually trying to do this, and at some point, once I've succeeded, because I'm still in the middle of it, I would like to write an article about how I wrote this application in an article on that application. So yeah, and there's an editing framework. So the last 10 years or so, I was pretty much working on web-based editing. I had a project with a friend called Substance. So this was all about that. And it's not much more simpler because we did it for scientific publishing. And yeah, this was basically just accumulating the ideas and things, interests that I also had. I'm very much like into conversations and exchanging knowledge, like exchanging the can, so to say. And so this was my idea. Yeah, but don't want to go too much into the detail of the product, but more like into the technical side of it, or to make it and to come to the cloud topic. As said, I have like a long, like 20 years plus development experience. I was doing full stack applications like PHP with databases and so on in the first like 5 to 10 years, but later on I was mostly focused on front-end development and really like building libraries and stuff. So I got a bit rusty on that backend side. And so this was for me now the challenge or the opportunity to learn also what has changed since then. So and pick the right tools, right? Yeah. So I had a whole bunch of challenges, and I would like to just like to talk about each of it a little bit. And as said, if there are any questions, ideas coming up, I'm also like learning. So maybe you have some ideas, what else I could use. I mean, I've made basically some decisions now and I'm in the middle of the implementation, but I'm all open to what is there. So first, application setup. There was only one thing that I knew that I will use, and that was React. I mean, I haven't used React particularly in the past, but our Substance framework was basically built on top of the same reactive pattern. So I'm kind of familiar with that, and it was clear for me that that's the technology to use. But then it came down to the application framework, and the question was like, should I use, I mean, basically Node.js, yes, because I'm fluent in JavaScript, but should I do it like bare metal or should I use framework? There's always the ups and downs of using a framework. So first you need to learn it, and sometimes it can be an overhead and actually slow things down. And I've had different, I mean, experiences with frameworks. Not all were the best, but some were really helpful. And I did quite some research, and what I ended up with, I mean, with React, there's not so many possibilities. There is like Gatsby and Next.js. And since I'm not having just a static page, but a lot of dynamic stuff going on, so Next.js was the way to go. And actually, I think a good choice, like having a very pleasant development experience. I don't need to set up build chains and all that kind of stuff, which I could do and I've done in the past, but it was always eating up a lot of time. Yeah. So I'm just thinking if I forgot something, but I think that's the basic application setup that I would use for development. The next question was like, yeah, which database to use? There's, SQL I'm used to, but I was also evaluating, okay, what's out there. I had a look at Firebase, which is basically a cloud service, like backend as a service. Looked really interesting. I played around with that a little bit. I wasn't so happy that it's kind of, like you give up some control. So it's like a company and they could change the pricing and so on. And also in terms of flexibility. And then I found Supabase, or Supabase, I don't know how you call it, Supabase. It's a San Francisco startup, but they build on top of Postgres, which kind of interesting project. And I was trying out that. And in the end, I still decided to go for just a plain Postgres database and using like a driver to connect to it. And Yeah, but what is interesting regarding databases and cloud is that I was trying, I mean, this is basically also with dealing with the traffic spikes, so, but it just comes to my mind. If you want to deploy something serverless, which you can do with Next.js, and there's like a platform Versal, where you can use other things like Amazon services, you need to have a thing. Basically, you cannot just use a database because you will run out of connections and then have errors. So basically, you need either a connection pool or you have some kind of intermediate service, and this Superbase would have done that for me, so it was interesting that. But finally, I found that DigitalOcean, I mean, I'm not making any like voting for any particular service, but this worked for me. They have a connection pooling, which you can just turn on, and then you can hit the database from the development setup, and it just runs really smoothly. And it was really helping me not to, because I'm used to running my own server, like on Hetzner, and then something goes down, some certs need to be updated, and I've done all that, and you can research everything, but it's eating a lot of time, and it can, cost you some nights where you're sleeping. So I'm really happy to rely on something that's hosted in this case. Rich text editing, as said, is very important for me. Despite we had developed our own framework, for me the requirements changed a little bit. So I was looking for basically JavaScript frameworks for rich text editing, and I ended up using Prose Mirror. So if any of you has to integrate something, I can really recommend that. It's a pretty nice library, and you can, I mean, it's basically really, you can extend everything. It's not a ready-made rich text editor. It's very modular, and I was able to build the editor that you saw before in the screenshot within a couple of weeks. Payments, also very interesting. So I have the situation that I not only need to accept payments from readers, but also to collect basically balances for each author, so that I can pay them out eventually. And I have not the ultimate solution now, but the Stripe service is pretty good. So I can basically integrate that. In the end, I had a look at other things. There's, what's the one from PayPal, Black Tree or something, I forgot the name, which is good. And also I had a look, because I mean, the payouts are a bit more tricky. You need to kind of interact with the APIs. And I just have very little time. So for me, it's really tricky not to end up researching and working on some detail and never be able to launch the platform at all. But so for now, I'm going with Stripe, and and doing the payouts manually for the start. So as soon as this loads up, then I would integrate either Stripe, or I also had a look at what's it called, like basically a crypto thing, which could really speed that up, because you have potentially international people. Like, it doesn't mean that you have, I mean, the platform is German, but you could have people from all over the world. And then it gets really tricky how to send the right invoices and stuff. So I'm searching for a easy peer-to-peer or easy way of sending money automatically. And this BitPay service looks very interesting, and the fees are also much smaller, like you have 1%. But of course, currently it's too early for such a thing, because the whole crypto thing is going up and down. And but it was interesting for me, because I mean, I wasn't even looking at that so much, but now with the pains of how you do a bank transfer, and like I was trying to get my bank to accept a list of transactions and kind of monitor and automate that, and it's just a pain in the ass with all the restrictions and regulations. And I just finally realized that this whole payment infrastructure thing somehow needs to improve. Stripe is really helpful, but there's also not the cheapest. So there's, for especially if you have articles with smaller amounts, you have to pay at least 25 cents for each transaction. So I'm looking at other options. Deploying from staging to staging and production. I'm basically running currently in production, but it's more internal. Internal prototype for my authors, like the initial ones. I'm using Digitalocean. There's this thing called Digitalocean Apps, which was just made for me because it uses Kubernetes underneath. You can scale up things, but it kind of hides the complexity. You just deploy your Node.js application and it runs it there. It worked really smoothly. I mean, this particularly is not serverless, but for me, it was important to be ready to go serverless once I have some traffic spikes, because I think for the start, it's a feeling more or less, but I think it's really cheaper to go with a standard server thing and then scale out with something like the Amazon infrastructure, or there is Versal. This is the hosting company behind Next.js. So that's also how it's their business model basically. So they have the hosting platform and they are developing the framework. So Versal and DigitalOcean was my choice here. And let me just check the time. Images and videos are also, so you can embed images and videos in the articles. And of course, here I also want to not host the images myself. So using something like S3 was clear to me. But then I also realized that kind of manipulating the images or having them in the different sizes, it gets more and more important as you have to serve mobile clients and all the different screen sizes and so on. So I was searching for that and I looked into Transloaded. It's a service, like these are German guys from Berlin, like from the early Node.js community, I know them. Looked good. Basically, you can send images and videos to a pipeline and they can process it. Somehow I was then in the end still not completely happy and I was researching more and I found for the images particularly, like it's called ImageX, IMGIX, and they are basically doing the thumbnail generation on the fly. So they have a content delivery network and you just hit their page, they're pulling it from the S3 bucket that you supply or the URL that you supply, and then they generate it for the first time. And from then on, it's cached and served. It's a really convenient service. Also need to watch how the expenses are going up once there is traffic on it, but I have a good feeling that this is doing the job. And for videos, I was also researching a lot because first I had the idea, okay, I'll just upload MP4 files directly and let the authors decide how to encode it and to have really the control over how the videos look. But I figured that's too technical and there are so many different formats and you also don't want to have the full thing. So you need a video processing. And that was really challenging me because I don't have time to build this and I still would like to have videos. And I also didn't want to just include YouTube or Vimeo, because then you always need to first go to these platforms, embed it. It's not a good user experience. And luckily I found the project called mux.com, M-U-X, and they're doing video processing, having an API for Node.js and like even some React integration libraries. Was just perfect. I haven't completely integrated it yet, but I've done the demoing and this will be one of the next tasks. Looks really promising. Dealing with traffic spikes. There's basically, of course, the whole database scaling thing and like the server. And it is really important. I think for me, like you could develop a very complex system and then optimize queries and so on, or you have a server-side layer that processes a file which fills up the memory. So you really need to scale the server. And I figured that basically going towards serverless can be really helpful here to just think to make the server application layer as thin as possible and use external services which are taken care of by somebody else. So for instance, the images I'm not even uploading to my own server. I'm just sending to Digitalocean Spaces, which is basically an S3 compatible system. And doing that with a cross-origin domain request. So this is not even hitting my server, which makes me feel kind of safe that this will not, kind of have a disruption or something. The same with videos. It's just like Max taking care of that. And I have on the server side really just API endpoints, which are accessing usually like a view, the SQL view. And I mean, it's also maybe just for sharing, because I had with a friend of mine, he's really a database nerd. And my previous way, I mean, I used object relational mappers and so on. So pretty much that the tables represent the domain model more or less. And I have always had a bit of fear to use advanced features of Postgres just because it seemed to complicate things, especially in the beginning. But I have to say that using the principle of just having the data pretty much as much normalized as possible in separate tables, which is very inconvenient for working with it, but leaves up a lot of opportunities for optimization. And then you can create views to basically for each endpoint in your application, you kind of have like one database view more or less, which exactly prepares the data that you need. And for me, that was really an efficient way of developing the app. And I was also looking into GraphQL and these kind of things. And I have a feeling that like going with plain SQL and having this kind of layers and using the Postgres features, which like JSON is included and so on, you don't need all of them. But I was really happy. That was also some good tips from Martin, my friend, that helped me here a little bit. And so this is the basic thing of dealing with traffic spikes. And then there is this tendency towards having static sites. So I wanted to utilize that as well, especially for the article pages. So they are in the internet, I mean, the free pages, the teasers. So if there could be like someone could post an article and it goes viral or something, so that these URLs would have a lot of hits. And I was there using the static site generation features of Next.js. So the way it works is basically I mean, it needs to be up to date also, but I can set something like every 5 or 10 seconds that it needs to update. So it does that in the background. But till then, it's serving the static thing. So you're all the time safe, basically. And once you're logged in and you have purchased an article, for instance, then it's what happens is that the static page is loaded, and then the data is fetched from the server, like also securely because you're logged in, and like the full article. And then this data is like the page is re-rendered, or so-called hydration. This is called like in the React terms. So basically, you're having a page and you're plugging in an updated page, and then as a user you don't see that even, especially if you don't have changes in the UI. So if the first part of the page looks the same, you don't even realize that actually a server request was made, which took a little bit longer. But the user experience is really good because it's like bam, and you see you have an initial flash of content. And so I was utilizing this only for the article pages for now. It needs a bit of extra work to kind of set that up. But I think that's a really good thing to know and to yeah, to consider even at the beginning. Yeah, security. I have to admit, like I need to dig deeper there, because for me it's important to have the domain model first. I have some basic security considerations like SQL injection and so on, which I'm taking care of course. But maybe some of you have more expertise there, like you're all in the cloud, like backend, probably much better than I am. So I'm really open to hear if you have ideas. I mean, you probably all use different stacks. I mean, I'm just using JavaScript. Yeah, that's basically, I'm sure I forgot a lot of things, but I also mentioned a lot of things. So yeah, any questions?
I start with one question. There is another question. But as I already announced that I will start ask a question, I will go first. Sorry, Matthias, and then we can jump into the discussion. But how it's not so much related to the technical challenges, but how did you come up with kind of a minimum viable product, the MVP? Did you base this also on technical considerations? Because we see a lot of challenges here, and yeah. I assume, as I still call you a one-man army, but but I assume dealing with all of this is kind of overwhelming. And did you define the MVP also based on technical challenges, or classically with kind of customer or user first, and then just walk your way from there?
I think personally it's a two-sided thing. I think it's really hard to say you just define a product from only the user side. I mean, that's my primary focus, of course. But if you say it doesn't matter how it's implemented, then you will be able, you can have some limitations, or you can hit some problems that you couldn't. So somehow you need to adjust things a little bit from the two sides. And the way I do it is, really prototype fast and try things out. I have a really hard time. I mean, people are different. I mean, there's some people that need to be more planned, and like design it all, the product, and then execute it. I'm more, trying this aspect. And then I'm seeing a lot of things that I wouldn't see if I'm just theoretically thinking about it on paper. So I really feel them or see them once I have the click flow in. So I'm trying to reach that level very fast. And then I'm adjusting on the different sides. I mean, I have enough technical understanding to know this is feeling right, or the APIs are quite right, or, and I also have the same feeling for the front end. Basically, is it already there? Is it like 80% there, or is it 50% there? And that's how I approach the optimum, and also always with assigning a certain time for each task, because it's so hard to lose so easy to lose the focus, and you end up, I don't know, working on the rich text editing for 3 months and perfectionizing it, and not having on the radar the video upload or some deployment and payments things. I was underestimating the payments side, or even, I mean, this is not like related to technical stuff, but like taxes and so on. Like, how do you deal with that? For instance, if you sell an article on the internet, you have to basically send the taxes to the country in which the buyer was sitting. So if someone in Cyprus is buying, like a German tourist in Cyprus is paying, like buying a Can article, I basically have to send the taxes to Cyprus. I mean, I'm not starting with that for a lower amount. You can start with just the local, so I can just do it with Austria. But as soon as it, I think, hits 10,000 euros, which it does fast, because, like, I mean, also my project will just live off like a commission, basically. So there's just a small percentage of the revenue that goes through it. So there will be like money going through it, and I need to somehow deal with these money streams and hopefully not have errors and stuff. So yeah.
Cool.
Does that answer your question? It was a bit
yeah, sure. It was more than an answer. But talking about the money stream, Matthias, you also had a question.
Yeah, so my question was, what are your running costs at the moment? So infrastructure, licenses, services, because you said you're doing a lot, not yourself, and you're using a lot of services for development. So in this stage where you're at the moment, how much ballpark figure are you spending on that?
It's not so much. I think it's like, mainly it's DigitalOcean. I have database cluster, the DigitalOcean apps, and I mean like the spaces. Yeah, these are the three. I think these are in total $30 per month. And then I've got like Max and so on. I mean, they will scale, but they all have a nice entry, so you can basically develop more or less for free. And then you need to price that in. And I mean, since I am not having like a whole free thing, so basically there will be just some assets, and maybe I do the videos for the first, like if I have troubles, I would move the videos behind the paywall so that it's not like a lot of free users, especially in the beginning. I need to consider this, that yeah, I'll just not have high expenses, and to get a feel of how the pricing works really, because it's impossible to just calculate it all through because you don't have the data of how much it is used. I don't have experience. So
speaking of users, how much contact have you had with end users so far? Have you done any UX testing or any interactions with people who will be using this, both as a writer and as a consumer?
So basically, currently I'm mostly with some writers. So I had just a bunch, not many. Like I think it will be 5 articles. In the end, I started with more, but not everyone has time to finish it, like for the launch, depending on when the launch is. I have a lot of experience with the building rich text editors, so I think I know there from the past experiences what are the requirements so to build a editing experience. But I had already the current prototype. It's on letscan.com. You can already write. I mean, this is like 2 months old or so. I'm currently working on the final version, but yeah, you can already write, and that's basically working. Yeah.
As a last question, maybe, is how do you do your estimations of the business case? So how do you estimate how many people will be using that, and how did you come up with that plan, or how detailed is that, or how rough is that?
That's, I mean, I would say it's very detailed, but because I was yesterday on the phone with the AWS, like AWS services, they are like funding things, and I was applying in October. So they need really like a very detailed business model and things. But basically my thinking is pretty simple. Like you have the commission, so you need a certain amount of articles, but I mean, I would just start with a smaller amount actually. Like if I have 10, 20 really good high quality articles, I would try with those people to promote them. Like we all help together basically to get it in a certain turnaround. And I think that then will attract new authors if you are a reader that's also considering sharing this. And there is another thing which is new. I need to try that out, but I want to try that as a, like if you're buying an article and you find it really, really cool, like you love it, you can write a recommendation for it. But it's not just like an Amazon reaction or like, what's it called, feedback. It's really something that will appear on your profile page. And also you get a link, which is basically your referral link. And you can share that on social media. And I designed it so that basically the author accepts that by using the service, that they would give a share of the revenue even to the ones that that are promoting it basically. So the idea is it's basically kind of a affiliate model or something. But this is always criticized because it's not honest, or someone is selling something that they don't really want. And my thinking behind was that, like if you buy an article and you love it, and then you write up like a recommendation, then this proves basically you're behind with your own identity for that referral. And I think that's really fair. Like if you're an author, if you would write about a topic and you had 20 happy users and they would like share your article to people that they think also would need it, you would be gladly giving them a share of it, I guess. So I mean, but that's something to test out, and I'm really curious of how that will go. Yeah. Cool. Not completely sure yet how high the fees will be. I mean, there is like, because of like compared with ebooks, for instance, I think Amazon or so, if you sell an ebook, you have maybe around 50% or so that revenue goes to you as an author. So I can easily compete with that, but I would still make it a bit higher in the beginning, like around 20, 25%, or maybe 20, something around that, and then go lower as soon as the platform scales, because I really have the difficulty in the beginning to somehow, like carry the platform, and I will just announce that honestly, like that the prices are a bit higher in the beta phase, and they will become lower as the users are coming in. Yeah.
Cool. We got another question, and I would just, as right now we don't need the slides, I would just stop them so we get a little bit more reader state here. We have another question coming in from Bala. You can also ask it yourself if you want, but I will just read it otherwise from the chat. How is security handled, like PCI standards during payments?
Well, I think that's what Stripe is taking care of. I don't know exactly what PCI standards are. I should maybe know. So,
if it's taken care of by someone else, you don't need to.
Well, I mean, I'll figure it out. I mean, I'm pretty sure the tax police will be after me soon, but I mean, I'm just doing my best. I have no criminal intents. I mean, Stripe is really handling all these compliance things. So you have always changing requirements, and that's why it doesn't make sense to integrate with banks directly as soon. I mean, unless you're really big and you can save some money by doing that. But yeah, maybe Bala, you can explain what PCI standards are. That would be helpful.
Hi. Yes, the payment card industry is on the DSS standard. Normally, when you do the payment, like Amazon.com, so whether it's from a genuine credit card kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I thought of asking, how you handle the payment and receive the payments.
Yeah. Okay. So that's basically, I mean, Stripe is chipping in there. There's different integration versions. What I'm doing now is a pretty simple one. It's like a checkout that you start. So it's basically like an e-commerce shop, like Amazon or anything. Or I mean, there's a lot of shops that are using Stripe as well. So you go to buy an article, and then you get sent to the Stripe page, which I can customize a little bit to make it like but you also see it's Stripe. I think that's a good thing because people also can trust this payment provider that they know, and then they enter the details, and then you get sent back the checkout, and I can query the checkout session that Stripe is creating if the payment was successfully done. So basically, they do that for me, and just like complete the transaction once the credit card or bank account transaction. So you can also use Klarna or Sofort, these kind of things. So they support all that.
Cool. Thanks. We already officially we have 6 minutes left. Are there any more questions? So my kind of takeaway already is, and I let Michael also comment on this, is that there are a lot of great services out there, and sometimes it's just better to use them instead of kind of trying to find a solution by yourself, like the video processing that you mentioned, and just kind of pay others that are the experts and focus on your core business, and let others do if someone else already solved the problem and they are doing this for a reasonable price, why not use their service? And that kind of accelerates your own innovation. This is what I kind of hear from what you were sharing.
Absolutely, and I have to say that I'm also quite conservative. Like, I'm not using any service out there. I try to reduce them to the minimum amount, because you're always like, I mean, I was very pure in the past. I wouldn't say, I mean, also from my open source times, you know, that we had like the radio talk, that you don't use any service that you would depend on because they could change their things, or it's not interoperable anymore. So it's always also a risk to trust a third party that you need to be aware of. But at the same time, if you do a good evaluation and you know basically what's around in the market, so it's really a research topic. And there's like, you have time and you have services, and you need to make decisions sooner or later. And I think there's no right or wrong. I can just say for this use case, this seemed to be a good mixture of things. And I was just going with the payment stuff. Like last week, for instance, I was really investing into automatizing the payout, and then at the same time, I wasn't completely sure of how I will deal with the taxes, because there's also lots of questions which affect the implementation. And somehow I made a few steps back, and I said, okay, I'll do that manually first. Like, every author will have a balance. And maybe I will call them even and say, hello, you have 1,000 euros made through the platform. Can I send it to you or something? I mean, especially with the resellers, that's a bit trickier, because you will have smaller amounts first. So if you maybe resell like 5 articles or so, then you have, I don't know, 5 euros on it. And I would then just ask for them to basically prompt me when I should send it, unless it's like 50 euros, then I would do it on my own. Yeah. But yeah, it's really just a balance thing. And I don't know how close I am. I mean, there's still a lot of things to do, but I feel like I'm getting towards a launchable product. And I really want to do it this time, not just like beta, and it should be all done with, you know, with the payment and with a certain amount of content. So I will iterate with my authors on some demo URL till I'm ready, and then launch it. And of course, there will be some glitches, but the product should be ready by then. And really, then I will also focus on the marketing part, and getting more content in, and maybe writing my own articles.
Cool. Thanks so much for sharing. This was really great. I just want to bring up one last slide, basically. Let me just do a quick screen sharing here. Because we had great talks today. Thanks, Kartik, and thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone, for joining. I know we kind of already took the full 2 hours. Hopefully, you also like the kind of networking and fun session in between. And thanks again to our sponsor, Chaos Native. Check them out at chaosnative.com. They're also a major driver behind the Litmus Chaos project that Kartik was about. So make sure to also check them out. And thanks again for supporting our meetup group. Juliana, do you want to add something?
No, just want to say thanks to Michael and Kartik again, to everyone that joined. And Jürgen, I guess we don't have the date for the next one, right? Okay,
Yes.
so
There
keep
will be a
going.
March meetup. We are currently organizing this. We are thinking about maybe doing something special, maybe doing kind of, again, a traditional meetup with 2 speakers. We are still in the process of figuring this out, but there will be an event in March, and we will let you know on meetup.com. And also please follow us on Twitter, and so you stay up to date.
Right.
Okay,
Cool.
then
Thank you very much.
thanks everyone for joining, and see you all latest in March.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.